Welcome to part 38 of Let Us Play 999. Give me a moment. Fan off. Alright. So, let's go to the casino. Fucking love craps. How about the casino on B deck? Okay, sounds good. They took off up the stairs at a run. Before they knew it, they were there. So was Lotus. She was leaning against the wall, examining her nails. Hey, what do you think you're doing? She glanced up at him, unimpressed. Isn't it obvious? I'm looking for Snake. I'm just not seeing it. Really? Maybe you'll need to look harder. Junpei didn't think that was the problem. Oh, by the way, I've got a proposal for you two. Care to hear it? What is it? Well, I don't like to beat around the bush, so I'll get right to it. Why don't we team up? Team up? Yeah. What, you need me to explain it to you? I'm saying, why don't we go through a numbered door? Even if we wanted to, that's impossible. Why? Jumpy's bracelet number is 5, mine is 6, and yours is 8. Our digital route would be 1. 5 plus 6 plus 8 is 19, 1 plus 9 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. But there's no number 1 door in the large hospital room. The only doors there are 3, 7, and 8. Then we add another person. Huh? Who? What, isn't that easy? 7. She was right. If they added 7, 5 plus 6 plus 7, 8 plus 7 is 26, 2 plus 6 is 8. Then the 4 of them could go through the number 8 door. But whoa, hold on a sec. What about the other 4? Why don't you add them up? That was simple enough. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. The digital root for those 4 would be 1. That's right. And you know the number 1 door isn't in the big hospital room, right? Of course I know that. No! Are you saying we should leave them behind? Of course not. What kind of a woman do you think I am? Once we get off the ship, we could come back and rescue them, couldn't we? Then we wouldn't really be leaving them behind. Don't try to lie to us. I don't think you'd do anything of the sort. Really? Why do you think that? You remember, don't you? We have less than 5 hours left. Even if we manage to escape, there's no way we could come back to rescue them in less than 5 hours. Well, you never know until you try. No, you're not thinking this through. Even if we brought someone with us, we wouldn't be able to get off the ship. The 4 of us couldn't open door 9.
It is hidden, but an exit can be found. Seek a way out. Seek a door that carries a 9.
Yeah, that's right. The digital route for us 4 would be 8, so we'd have to add Ace to make it 9. Right. Unless we bring Ace too, we'll be stuck. Lotus scratched the back of her ear. Oh. Well, that's unfortunate. She didn't sound particularly bothered by what Junpei had said. Nor did she seem particularly surprised. Well, let's try and find another way, okay? A way to get out of here with all 8 of us. That's impossible. Are you being serious? You do know that only 5 people at most can go through one of the numbered doors, right? The number 9 isn't going to be an exception to that rule. Regardless, at least 3 people will get left behind. You're right. That is true. The moment he said it, Junpei felt a chill run down his spine. It was true. How Lotus could remain cavalier about so terrifying a prospect was beyond him. When they found the number 9 door, they would have to choose which 3 of them would die. Lotus's forehead furrowed. Do you think I could have a moment alone? There's some things I need to think about. Junpei and June turned and began to walk away from Lotus. Talking to her had left them feeling ill. Junpei's heart felt heavy, and his steps sluggish. But, he told himself, pessimism would get them nowhere. So he forced himself to smile and turned to June. Let's just focus on finding Snake for now, okay? Yes, you're right. We can think about those other things later. Junpei nodded. Alright, where should we go next? Let's go to the first class cabin, also on B deck. Let's go take a look at the first class cabin. It's really close. They turned around and took off down the hallway to their left. Outside of the first-class cabin, they'd found Clover. She was standing in front of the wall. She was staring at a meaningless point on the wall, her eyes blank. What should Junpei do? Let's talk to her. Are you alright? He did his best to sound friendly, but Clover didn't respond. Look, I know you're really worried, but, He could think of no words to say that didn't sound hollow and fake. Junpei hesitated. Clover was so consumed by worry and fear that Junpei feared it would crush her. Her actions didn't surprise him. She'd suddenly lost her brother, who she seemed to have been very close to. Her voice was thin and barely audible. I said leave me alone! Suddenly she was screaming. You're so annoying! Just go away and leave me alone! Just looking at you guys is pissing me off! Go away, okay? Just go somewhere else! Stop bothering me! Junpei was taken aback. Such anger and hate. Jun's eyes had gone wide with surprise as well. Why are you still here? Didn't you hear me? Fine, forget it. If you aren't gonna leave, then I'll just... Alright, let's go, Jun. Yeah. The metal sound was me accidentally hitting a fork. They turned and left Clover. As they did, Junpei glanced back over his shoulder to see Clover wiping tears from her face. Clover had driven home the misery of their situation, but Junpei told himself that getting depressed would get him nowhere but depressed. For Clover's sake, they had to find Snake, and fast. He did his best to push away the misery and depression, and forced a smile. So where do you think we should go next? Let's go to the hallway with all the rooms. Hey, why don't we go back to C-Deck? We can take a look at that hallway with all the rooms. Okay, let's get going then. Together they ran down the stairs. Ahead of them, farther down the hallway, they spotted Ace.
Hey, Snake! Where are you? Answer me if you're there!
Junpei paused. What did he want to do? Run to Ace. With Jun in tow, Junpei jogged up to Ace. Hearing their footsteps, he turned to greet them. One moment, real quick.
Ah, hello there. Snake is... well, that's obvious, isn't it? I assume you haven't found him yet either.
Junpei nodded. I really wonder where he could have gone.
Well, wherever he's disappeared to, we must find him as quickly as we can, for Clover's sake.
Right. Jun's face looked kinda enraptured. By the way, do you think Clover and Snake are really siblings?
Why would you say that?
Why would you say that? The question seemed somehow odd to Junpei. Why? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? They don't look alike at all. Ace looked at him for a moment and then spoke.
Yes, you know, now that you mention it, they don't.
Now that you mention it?
Still, there are a great many siblings who do not look like one another. It certainly isn't rare.
Junpei wasn't sure why, or even if he was seeing what he thought he was, but he could have sworn that Ace's face tightened as he spoke.
At any rate, we really must find Snake as soon as possible. The clock is ticking. We really can't afford to waste any time. Very well, let's get back to the search, shall we? You can leave this area to me.
Alright. Let's go, Jumpy. At Jun's urging, they left. They found themselves back at the stairs, but Junpei's mind was in turmoil. There was so much to think about, but... no, it would have to be put aside for now. As Ace had said, finding Snake was their top priority. Junpei did his best to clear his mind. Alright, where should we go next? Anyway, back to the large hospital room. Why don't we go back to the big hospital room? Okay, let's go then. They turned and headed back towards the large hospital room. On their way to the large hospital room, Junpei and Jun noticed Santa standing next to the number 3 door. Junpei paused. What should Junpei do? Just talk to him. Junpei and Jun walked up to Santa. What are you doing?
What, you can't tell? I'm checking out the red.
Why, is there something bothering you?
What, it's not bothering you? Huh? This, the guts of the red. Why wouldn't you wonder who the hell put it back in here?
Yeah, that's true. Well, I'm curious too, but
who do you think did it? Santa's eyes narrowed as he looked at June. She shook her head.
I don't know.
Well, what about you, Junpei? Who do you think fixed this thing for us? I want to add intrigue by going to an option I haven't chosen yet. But then, let's say 0. I think it was probably 0. Why? Isn't that obvious? He's the guy who set this whole thing up. You don't think that should mean the opposite? Seems to me that that means he didn't do it. I mean, who do you think took the stuff out of there in the first place? Probably 0. Yeah, exactly. Then why the hell would he put him back in after he'd taken him out himself? It just doesn't make sense. Why do all that work? Yeah, I guess that makes sense. So what happened then? Who put the stuff back in the Reds? Junpei furrowed his brow. So, in other words, one of us is the person who fixed the Reds. Santa grinned. Bingo. We have a winner. But if that's true, then the person who did it doesn't want the rest of us to know that they fixed the Reds. Yeah, but why? No idea. Maybe if they come clean on that, it means we'd find out something else. Something bad. Something bad? Dunno, but whatever it is, it's gotta be worth hiding. Of course, it could have something to do with Snake's disappearance. You think maybe they did something to Snake? It's not out of the question. Junpei stared at Santa. There was something about him that made Junpei wary. At first, he had assumed the other man wasn't terribly clever, but Junpei was beginning to think he would need to reevaluate that assessment. When Santa spoke again, his voice was quiet. Look, if you trust anybody in this game, you're gonna lose. You gotta be careful. The person you trust the most could turn out to be the one who stabs you in the back. With that depressing suggestion, he turned and quietly walked away. Junpei and June looked at one another and smiled awkwardly. Where would they go next? Let's finish searching. They looked everywhere they could think of, but Snake was nowhere to be found. Lotus looked around at 6 frustrated faces and spoke. We can't keep looking for Snake. Wherever he is, it's not here. We need to get moving. Junpei couldn't disagree with what she was saying. Snake seemed to have completely disappeared. There was no point to wasting any more time. The others seemed to be having similar thoughts, but stayed silent. Finally, 7 spoke. We don't got a choice. Lotus is right. We're not gonna find Snake. There's a problem, though. We gotta figure out who's gonna go through which door. Yes, I have a proposal. She walked back and forth across the floor, her heels clicking against the wood. Finally, she stopped. Why don't we decide on one person to sacrifice? Sacrifice? Well, perhaps that's a bit of a harsh word, but yes. You've all figured it out by now, haven't you? We can't all make it through those doors. If we split into 2 teams of 4 and 3 people respectively, then 3 people will be left behind. If we split into 2 teams of 5 and 2 people respectively, then 2 people will be left behind. But if we split into 2 groups of 3 and leave 1 person out, then only 1 person will be left behind. Leave behind 3 people with 2 teams of 4 and 3? She was right. It wasn't pleasant, but she was right. There wasn't any way that the numbers worked out. If one group was 4, the other group would always have a digital root that didn't match a door. When 7 spoke, his voice was strained. Then, you're saying we gotta decide who's gonna stay behind? Yes, we do. Given our circumstances, it's logically and morally the best solution. If the other 6 are to survive, then 1 person has to sacrifice themselves. No! That's too cruel! What's so cruel about it? To just sacrifice someone like that. Then what's your plan? Maybe we should sacrifice 2 people instead of just 1. That's not what I meant. We shouldn't sacrifice anyone. I told you, that's impossible. Wake up! Whoa, calm down, you 2. Santa stepped between Lotus and June. Look, what Lotus is trying to say is that you should aim to bring the greatest amount of happiness to the greatest amount of people. Right?
Exactly. That's how democracy works. And for that reason, I think it's only fair. The only fair way to decide who will be sacrificed is through a vote. What do you think? No, that's terrible. I'm not asking you. Shut up. What about you, Santa?
Me? Well, I agree, I guess.
Alright, that's 1 vote for. Counting mine, that's 2. 7.
I can't say I agree with you, but we don't exactly have a choice. If we don't do something, we're all gonna die.
Glad to see you get it. If I can get 1 more vote, then it's decided. What about you, Clover?
Clover had moved away from the group and was sitting on one of the beds. Her whole body drooped. Junpei didn't know if she'd even heard Lotus's proposal. Lotus walked over to Clover and gently laid a hand on her shoulder.
Your brother has to be behind one of the numbered doors. We searched everywhere, but we didn't find him. Doesn't that mean he has to have gone through one of them somehow? Clover slowly lifted her face. Let's go look for him together, okay? If we sacrifice one person, then we can go look for him. You agree with me, right?
Clover nodded once.
The motion carries.
Lotus spun around and walked towards Junpei.
Now, let's start a vote to...
That won't be necessary. Ace had barely spoken for Lotus's entire speech, and everyone jumped a little. 6 pairs of eyes turned to look at him. He didn't seem to notice or even care. I will stay. That should solve our problem, yes?
Ace, what are you trying to say? No, you can't do that. That won't solve anything.
June's voice shook, and she looked around desperately for someone to agree with her. Ace simply looked at her. June, I'm afraid you may have misunderstood me. I said I would stay, but I never said I would sacrifice myself.
Huh?
I trust you. Each and every one of you. I believe you'll come back for me. Whoa, whoa, whoa. There's optimistic, and then there's just nuts. Those doors only go one way. You go in, you don't come out. If we go through them, you won't be able to return, correct? Yeah. True, but that will not be the case once you've escaped from the ship. What? Please, I beg you, once you've escaped, come back and rescue me. Ideally, within the time limit Zero has given us.
No, that's ridiculous.
There's no way we could get back in time. Finally, Junpei could hold his tongue no longer. We've only got 5 hours left. We don't even know where the hell we are. How on earth are we going to find someone to come and rescue you? Then perhaps you would prefer to stay instead of me. Or perhaps you would be willing to leave June behind. Ace's voice was dignified and without a hint of cruelty or malice. Junpei had no rebuttal. You see, there's no other choice. And I see we've come to our conclusion. Go on. Don't worry yourselves about me. Go. Quickly. Junpei stood frozen by indecision, unable to move. June bit her lip so hard that Junpei feared she would break the skin. Santa stood against a wall, calm and aloof. Seven tore his beanie from his head and turned it over anxiously in his hands. Sorry, I had to check something. Only Clover stared at Ace, with an expression Junpei was unable to decipher. Lotus's attitude, however, was different from the others.
Good. Let's accept his kind offer, then.
She smiled, her eyes bright. Ace answered with a smile of his own. Good. I think this is best for me. Perhaps I'll be able to take a nap. Perhaps it's my age, but I get tired so easily these days. As he spoke, Ace lowered himself down to the floor next to one of the beds. From somewhere deep in the ship, Junpei suddenly heard the screeching of metal on metal. It was almost as if the ship were screaming. Would it really hold until their time limit was up? Already D-Deck was flooded. In the sudden silence, the only sound was the sad metal wail of the ship. Unsurprisingly, it was Lotus who spoke first.
Well, what are you waiting for? We're wasting time. Why don't we hurry it up?
As if a spell had been broken, the others all began to talk at once. You're right. We should get going. That's all we can do right now.
Seven.
Seriously. Honestly, I was getting kind of sick of listening to you guys talk.
You too, Santa? I have to find my brother. Wait, all of you, let's just calm down and think about this. There has to be a way to get everyone out. There has to be. Right, Jumpy? Say something.
Yeah, let's think. There's gotta be another way. His words sounded hollow and fake.
Fine, forget about it. I'll figure it out on my own. She spun around and ran towards Ace. He had slumped down next to the bed when June grabbed his arm and pulled. Come on, Ace, please stand up. You can't give up yet. We just have to sit down together and think about this. We'll figure out a way that we can all get out of here. Then it happened. Ace fell forward. He slumped over onto the wooden floor, his body folded in half like a boxer out cold. Ace! June cried out and dropped to her knees beside him. She put her arm around his neck and did her best to lift him up. What happened, Ace? Say something! She shook him frantically. His eyes fluttered open. I'm all right. His voice was weak and slightly slurred. How are you? Fine? Fine? I wasn't sure. I was mixed between two different ways to say that. Anyway, let's continue. He held out his left arm and slowly opened his hand. In it was a syringe and a small vial. The vial was empty. It had only recently been emptied. A few drops clung to the side. There was a label taped to the side of the container. It read Soparil Beta. Soparil Beta? Junpei had no idea what it meant or what kind of medicine it might be. Did you use this? Yes. It's just anesthetic. I'll be fine. Anesthetic? I found it earlier while we were searching the hospital rooms. I thought it might be useful later. I didn't think I'd be using it on myself. Why did you do this? Didn't I tell you? I'd like to take a nap. I really am very tired. Junpei knew that wasn't why he'd done it. Ace had injected himself with anesthetic to forestall Junpei and Jun's attempts to bring him along. If he couldn't move, there was nothing they could do. He'd injected himself so that way they would be forced to leave him behind. Ace! Is there something you want to say? I'd just like to sleep a little. Could you keep it down? No! Don't, Ace! Don't fall asleep! You feel warm. So comfortable. I think I'll have a nice dream. Ace's eyelids drooped further and further, almost as though he were dying. Ace! Ace! She shook his shoulder again and again, but this time he didn't respond. Only the gentle rising and falling of his chest told them that he was alive. Junpei was relieved to see he was in fact still breathing. Seems like a fine enough place to stop. However, we're at the save. Do not turn off the system while the message is displayed. That rhymed in kind of a rap rhythm. Anyway, until next time, peace off.